always welcome. That's Inside New Orleans Sports, Thursdays 6 to 7 p.m. with a rebroadcast on Fridays 10 to 11 p.m. on WLAE-TV.
Hey, I'm Keith Sparrow from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is singer-songwriter and fellow Texas A&M Aggie, Lyle Lovett. Lyle, do you know any good Aggie jokes?
My favorite Aggie joke is about the incoming freshman who was traveling to College Station for the very first time, and as he got close, he saw a sign that said College Station left, so he turned around and went home.
Tune in for more Aggie humor this week on Let's Talk.
We're local and enlightening. You're watching WLAE-TV, celebrating 40 years of New Orleans public television.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams as we do each and every week. Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. We're going to talk a little high school as well to break it down for us. One of the best we have in the city and the state. Richie Mills, WGNO Channel 26 Sports. Richie, welcome to the show. Good to see you again, my friend.
Thank you.
I know you've been working hard, but I want to, again, thank you for coming down today.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. Sorry for the delay.
No, we're good. We're good. I've been asking Richie for like 3, 4, I don't know, about a month or so, of course, again, with the passing of our good friend Ed Daniels. He's been loaded down with work over 26, so we're glad he's with us today. And they got a little help coming over there as well, so we'll talk about that as well. Let's start with, again, what's going on at Channel 26. And, of course, all the great programming, SEC on ABC, which, again, is got to be fantastic for you guys. Break it down for us.
Well, first and foremost, we've had the WGNO Sports Zone, which has been around forever. That show airs Friday nights at 10:30 p.m. on NOLA 38. It now replays Saturday mornings at 10:30 a.m. on WGNO. What that's transformed into now is a college football-focused show, sort of previewing the day ahead for you so that when it does replay on Saturday mornings, you're sort of getting an update on everything college football, which now we have weekly sit-downs with Tulane head coach John Summerall. We preview LSU. We also take a look at Southeastern, Nicholls, Southern, Grambling, really everything college football in the state of Louisiana, and we encompass all of that in that show. Now the SEC on ABC, like you mentioned, Sports Zone Saturday Night Football, that now airs after the primetime game Saturday nights on ABC. It's been fun. It's been a thrill, especially those last-minute thrillers that we've been treated with the last few weeks. Of course, LSU, Ole Miss, the most recent one. We had a post-game special on that. But that's sort of a new thing that we're doing, a very popular thing that we're doing now. Then, of course, Friday Night Football, every Friday night, NOLA 38, the CW, the replay at midnight. Always a beast, but always the most gratifying experience of doing that show. Me stepping into it in a new capacity. I now have a newfound appreciation for the fact that that show's been around for 32, 33 years now, and then everything that Ed did, and then you sort of receive comments and texts throughout the course of the week, just basically talking about, you know, what the show's meant to the community, the direction it's in, where it's at right now. So it's been fun. And then, of course, course, on Monday Night Football, they've spared us no special in that sense. So anything related to the New Orleans Saints, the LSU Tigers, we pulled the trigger on pretty much a pregame and a postgame special in that regard. So sometimes I sleep.
Yeah, busy times, no doubt. You mentioned again Friday Night Football and the standard in this state and maybe in the country when it comes to again covering football, high school football. Couple big games last week. First of all, Riverside versus St. Martin's. Two running backs that again went absolutely crazy, and of course again a quarterback that again went nuts as well up in North Louisiana. Let's take again Riverside versus St. Martin's first. Talk a little bit about that. Talk about the backs and what happened last Friday night.
So of course, anytime you match up Harlem Berry with one of the top running backs in the state, which is Dedrick Lasty over at Riverside Academy. For those of you not familiar with Mr. Lasty, 42 touchdowns last year. He led Riverside to the Superdome. They played for a state championship. He's only 5'4", and I think the numbers that people are fixated on is his height, his weight. But again, when you watch this kid play, I mean, it's just, he's electric. The things that he does, he's patient, he's aggressive, he can kill you on the ground, he can kill you through the air. 42 touchdowns, and it's a shame because I haven't seen too many offers for this young man. Now, Harlem Berry, on the other hand, top running back in the country. That's why he's committed to LSU. Harlem Berry had 300 yards, around 5 touchdowns in that matchup Friday night. Dedrick Lasty went for 534. He had 9 total touchdowns. Again, nothing against Harlem Berry. Harlem Berry is going to have an exceptional career to finish up high school and college and beyond. Dedrick Lasty, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated and underappreciated backs in the state of Louisiana, and we've covered him the past 2-3 years, so I can confidently tell you that. And it's so unfortunate because, again, 42 touchdowns last year for a very young Riverside team. They made it to the Superdome, and then he does 534 and 9 touchdowns in a monster win over St. Martin's. It was not a close football game. That was a blowout win.
Yeah, blowout win. And of course, up in North Louisiana and with Evangel, they got a quarterback. 10 touchdowns?
I think, 10 touchdowns, 817 yards passing. Is only a sophomore, Peyton Houston.
That's one game, folks.
I remember seeing the score, and I'm thinking to myself, 2 things. I said, where was the defense? Was it optional?
You mean like the Saints game?
And then I got a little worried because you saw that they lost. He threw for 817, 10 touchdowns in a losing effort to Captain Shreve.
Unreal.
And then you think to yourself, okay, because Friday Night Football brain is kicked in. Captain Shreve plays at Destrehan Friday night, so you're thinking, I hope they've cooled off.
No doubt about it. How's the season been, high school football?
It's been good. I think it's been super competitive. I think no one's really separated as that elite team. People ask me all the time, who do you think the best team in the state is or in this classification? I can honestly say I have no idea, and that's a good thing.
That's a great thing,
because there's so much parity, especially in a league like the Catholic League. Everyone's knocking off #1 each and every week. Carr's always going to be the most talented team in that league. But then you see, obviously the course of the season happen. You have injuries, you have surprises, you have everything possible. So I can confidently say it's been competitive and it's been fun. I have no idea who's going to win it all at the very end, and that's good because now there's new faces that can be featured in the Dome. You can spotlight guys like a Mr. Lasty who, if they do make it to the Superdome, that's great. So it's so much parity throughout the high school football season, and I think it's great. Now, what I don't like is the power rankings. When you have North Louisiana teams paired with South Louisiana teams, and the unfortunate reality there is they don't play each other. So we don't know who the best in the state is until they make it to the playoffs.
You can see the passion there, right? Friday Night Football. Got to check them out, Channel 26 for sure. All right, let's talk some Saints. Yeah, we got to. 51-27 beat down from the Bucks. Why don't you just give me your overview of this game? I'll look at Saints look like again came first quarter, first half. They were first quarter was they were down. First half the second quarter they come back. You're figuring again that maybe again they'll be able to hang one in the second half. That doesn't happen. It's tends to say blowout. When you were in the Dome, just your overall thoughts of what you saw.
I went into the game with 0 expectations because, in a sense, that would allow you to honestly evaluate Spencer Rattler's first start. But then again, if the Bucks won the game, you also weren't surprised. I mean, you can't help but ignore the injury report. And I hate saying that. It's not an excuse. It's a reality. This team faced on Sunday and they faced in years past is that they can't stay healthy.
Right.
So when you don't have your top pieces, I think when Eric McCoy went out in the first quarter of that game against Philly and we saw how the Saints performed after that with Derek Carr, that was some insight on who this team will be without their air traffic controller under center. I mean, that's the guy that's in charge of your communication.
Sure.
Communication was on point those first 2 games, but you don't have that guy. So unfortunately, we saw what the Saints were going to look like. Derek Carr goes out. Add him to the injury report. I think Tuesday's injury report had 17 names on it. You can't win football games with that, especially when you look at the list, you say starter, 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 starter. You can't. And even some of the guys that are limited or even full participants, they're banged up. They're playing hurt. The New Orleans Saints are not 100% health.
Agreed.
So, again, when you're watching the game Sunday, you don't know what to expect from Spencer Rattler. You know the Bucs, reigning division champs, they're going to come in, give the best shot, just like they did last year when they blew out the Saints at home in the Dome. Derek Carr was playing with a hurt right shoulder in that game as well. So I just kind of went into it with 0 expectations. It was a roller coaster, I'll tell you that. I just remember sitting back and being like, man, we're really going all over the place here. I mean, you go down 17-0, you score 27 in the second quarter, and you get shut out in the second half. I just think the emotions definitely too much for the New Orleans Saints to overcome. But when I was looking at it this morning, I thought to myself, you know, Spencer Rattler didn't play bad.
No, he didn't.
He was aggressive.
I thought he was.
He has a gunslinger mentality. You saw that in every way, shape, and form on Sunday. Unfortunately, he got picked off 2 times. He was also sacked 5 times.
Right.
And the Saints defense in the NFL, you know, statistical leaders, they're last right now.
Right.
So there's a disconnect. There's no complimentary football, but in a sense, you just look at it and you shake your head and you're like, you can't ignore the injuries. You're missing some of your top critical pieces, including your starting quarterback. It just kind of feels like it's all discombobulated right now, but this is unfortunately what we've dealt with the past few years.
2-4, lose a 4 in a row now. They're 3rd place in the NFC South, 1-2 in the division, 2-3 in the conference, and again, you look at a quick turnaround against Denver. We'll get into that in a moment on Thursday night. I want to talk about the defense first because that was supposed to be the bedrock of this team. We have not seen the pass rush that was expected. I never bought into this team could be able to stop the run. They did not do enough in the offseason to upgrade the interior of the defensive line. It's pretty much the same guys as last year. They got a cast off in Ridgeway who was going to be cut anyway from Washington. They gave him a draft pick to get him over here. And of course, they drafted a kid out of a small school that again has been in and out the rotation. So again, to me, they didn't do enough to shore up the interior of the defensive line. They've had a lot of injuries at linebacker. Again, when you lose Pete Werner, when you lose Demario Davis, again, and then even Gay, again, with the hand, obviously that's going to be an issue. The secondary, for the most part, with the exception of Tyrann Mathieu, has been healthy. Obviously, again, they lost their other safety, Harris. But the corners, for the most part, have been healthy. What I saw on Sunday really, again, frustrated me because it looked like, again, first of all, there wasn't attention to detail. And the tackling, as the coach mentioned, was atrocious. But again, it seemed like, again, there wasn't the effort that was necessary there. You were in the locker room. You saw, you watched these. You were in the Dome. What's your take on again how this defense performed on Sunday? And then, was there the effort there in your opinion?
Well, I think the offense definitely put a lot more pressure on them, but still, this, as you mentioned, has been the backbone of this team for years, a group that's understood when the offense isn't getting it done, we have to elevate our play. Unfortunately, they did not do that on Sunday, and then you learned about a guy named Sean Tucker who had a career day against the New Orleans Saints, Bucky Irving, a rookie running back. I mean, those two almost combined for, what, 200 total yards rushing?
Well, Tucker only had 30 yards until the game against the Saints, 30 yards in his career.
Right. And then yesterday, when you're listening to, the players, the coordinators talk, 2 words really stuck out to me because they were used so many times: execution and tackling. Yeah. 2 issues that they dealt with. I mean, even Sean Tucker on one of those plays, Chris Godwin on one of those plays, nobody wrapped him up. You actually hit him forward, and you gave him a much-needed boost on a long explosive for a touchdown. So, I mean, it just kind of feels like it's all falling apart. But again, injuries, unfortunately, have taken some of your best players out of there, but it just does not look the same. And when I looked at the schedule at the beginning of the year, not knowing what was going to happen weeks 1 and 2, I said, honestly, they could start 1 and 4 and they can still win 8 games. And I think that's still a possibility for this team moving forward.
Oh, look, I don't think anybody should be giving up on the season yet.
Right.
Okay. There's 11 games left. Okay. So I don't think anybody should be giving up yet. Now, again, it doesn't look good. But again, I thought the first 2 weeks masked a lot of deficiencies that we saw on the defensive side of the ball. When you get up early, teams abandon the run. And the Saints, again, now I think the Saints have been figured out. Teams are going to be able to go after them with their big backs. They're going to run the football. The Saints have had issues with the crossing routes forever, and now teams are continuing to use the crossing routes on them, not just receivers, but tight ends. I mean, literally, Kansas City beat them with 4 tight ends. Okay, so, I mean, again, those things have to get shored up. And look, you mentioned the injuries and again, the lack of really, in my opinion, the lack of quality depth. And that stems from, again, the issues they have with the salary cap. You can't continue to kick the can down the road and then expect to be able to continue to be able to compete in the free agency market, again, for the top players. The Saints have basically boiled down to 1-year rentals on cast-offs or journeymen, holding on to maybe their rookies maybe a little longer than they should because, again, they're cheap labor, and then undrafted free agents. And when you get past that your starters or your top 22, there's a huge drop-off, and we're seeing that now.
No, there is, and that's why when you see, reports of a potential pursuit for a guy like Davante Adams, it frustrates me because I think to myself, Davante Adams has never taken a snap on the offensive line. Why would you pick him up?
Right. Agreed.
You need an offensive lineman. You don't need another top-tier receiver. I actually heard you ranting about it on the radio one day because you look at their salary cap for next year, they're $97 million in the hole already.
Right.
They haven't signed Alvin Kamara to an extension. I mean, you have expiring contracts. You have older players. I mean, it's just the whole situation is bad. It's frustrating.
Yes.
But it's also understanding when you see the product that's on the field. There's a lot of season left to play. I'm not ready to throw in the flag.
Me too.
But unfortunately, that's not the way people think. They take it week by week. They see the result, and they think the sky is falling, unfortunately.
But it is a week-to-week league.
No, it is.
Right? And again, as I've mentioned on both the radio and TV shows, it is a league of attrition, and you have to be prepared for injuries in the NFL. And unfortunately, because of, again, the being cap-strapped, they are caught between a rock and a hard place with that. And, of course, look, I think they got lucky being able to get a guy like Connor McGovern off a practice squad, and he's starting for you in center 2 weeks later. I mean, really, a couple days later, right? Now, and but again, you're seeing the drop-off from, again, what we saw when you had a full complement of players in week 1 to what you're seeing now, in week 6?
And it doesn't help, too, that you played Carolina, who struggled to win anything last year. And then Dallas, we see Dallas for what they are right now.
That's correct.
They look like they don't know how to play football anymore. So, again, it's kind of deceiving those first 2 weeks, but I think what we saw Sunday is as low as it could get. Moving forward, I mean, you expect improvement out of Spencer Rattler. The defense can only get better, but I mean, when you look at the offense in a regard, I mean, the pressure that they put on the defense, which I'm sure we're about to get into, it's just, I just see there's no complimentary football. Nothing's in sync there, and unfortunately, they gave up 51 against a divisional opponent, the Bucs.
And then just an embarrassing performance by the Saints all the way around. Now, I do want to talk about the offense. I want to talk about Rattler because, again, I think he did some really good things. First half, obviously, better than the second half, but you knew Bowles was going to adjust. He was going to blitz him. He was going to take away, again, his ability to roll out, make him have to throw from the pocket. He did that. But again, you can see the experience from college, playing at an Oklahoma, playing in the SEC at South Carolina. It didn't seem like, again, the moment was too big for Spencer Rattler.
No, because he played young in college. I mean, he's seen so many snaps, so many games in so many different environments. I mean, you play at Oklahoma, you play in some of the biggest, loudest venues there are in college football. Then you go to the SEC, and that's really a whole new transformative experience of football. So he wasn't phased in that regard. And again, he did play well. He was able to extend plays. They put him in position to be successful. I was really impressed with the play calling because some of the throws that he had to make, super simple. He was able to improvise. We learned about that a lot yesterday, and that also led to some explosives. But once the adjustment was made with an inexperienced offensive line that, really the interior part of that, which you just mentioned with Connor McGovern and company, once Tampa was able to sort of adjust and move beyond that level, then you saw, 5 sacks, then you saw 2 picks. But I think it was an eye-opening experience for Spencer Rattler in a sense like, okay, now I need to open up some of my game more because, maybe the qualities of my game that translated to that start, that worked, they're not going to work moving forward because now there's tape out on me. So again, I think we'll see a better form of Spencer Rattler. Again, the gunslinger mentality, when you hear Dennis Allen and all them say, he gives us the best chance to win, he's going to be aggressive. Your back's against the wall. You need someone that's going to be aggressive, and I think that's what we saw from Spencer Rattler.
I think you made a great point earlier in the program about losing a guy like McCoy and being the air traffic controller because in a game like what we saw against Tampa on Sunday, you need that guy to be able to again communicate with the offensive line on where the blitz packages are coming from. You did not see that at all. And of course, again, then you have guys in there who maybe are not ready for prime time, like Saliveri, except, okay, we got pushed around. Obviously, again, they keyed on him a lot. Really on the interior of the Saints offense. You add that with a rookie quarterback, and that, again, that's not a recipe for success.
If Eric McCoy is available Sunday, I think Spencer Rattler has a much better game than he did. But again, when you see Derek Carr and Eric McCoy butting heads in the middle of a football game, it's because those are your two main communicators on the offensive side of the football, and there was a miscommunication and a disconnect, and you see them airing it out, unfortunately, in the middle of a game. And you see what Eric McCoy has meant to this organization. I mean, when he's been healthy, their offensive line really hasn't had too many issues. Now, unfortunately, they've dealt with injuries yet again, but he's really been a steady piece for them. And I think in those first 2 weeks, when everything was in sync, everything was going well, you hear them say less is on Derek Carr's plate this year. How much more is on Eric McCoy's plate? We don't really know, but given their performance in the first 2 weeks of the season, you have to understand that he's had a big part to play in that. When you lose that guy, unfortunately, you see the dysfunction on the offensive line like we did Sunday.
You know, and one of the talking points going into the season was the Shanahan-Kubiak offense and the way the offensive line, the techniques they have to use would mask some of the deficiencies. But when there's a drop-off in terms of talent, it is difficult to be able to mask deficiencies, especially when, again, you look at the way defensive lines have morphed over time with the athletes that they now have on the defensive line.
And Alvin Kamara, I think about him all the time when I watch them play because he exploded in the first 2 weeks. Last 4 games, I think he's averaging about 57 yards rushing. In the last 4 games, I think his lowest was 26. Exactly. So, you know, to your point about the defensive line, I mean, every time he touches the football, first contact is made either in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage. And you need Alvin Kamara. We've seen what all these offensive systems have, you know, produced in years past. And last year, Christian McCaffrey in practically an MVP season was one of them. You expected that from Alvin Kamara. You saw it the first 2 weeks. But unfortunately, the missing pieces on the offensive line, the Eric McCoys, the Cesar Ruiz and company, you need them because now your top player on offense can't get anything going. And then you expect everyone else to sort of pick up the slack. And unfortunately, they can't because of the offensive line.
Well, again, offensively, Means looked really good. I thought that had a lot to do with those guys, between Rattler and Means. Again, their connection, you know, on the show team, probably in practice. He's going to have to step up again, especially now. It looks like, again, both the two top receivers of the Saints may not be available for Denver. Am I right? Olave and Shaheed both
Absolutely.
injured?
They both did not practice on Tuesday, but you look at a guy like Bub Means, who Spencer Rattler fortunately has gotten ample reps with throughout the course of the offseason programs. He had high praise for him when he spoke on Tuesday. I think this is a Bub Means breakout opportunity. We didn't know what we were going to get from him anyways. He didn't explode in college. Nothing about his numbers jumped off paper. And we were like, okay, let's trust the organization in this regard when they draft a player like that. Catches a touchdown Sunday. Spencer Rattler trusts him. So you hope that we can see more from Bub Means. Cedric Wilson, he's going to have to step up. And then again, you look at the rest of the receiver room. They bring in Dante Pettis.
Pettis.
You don't have A.T. Perry anymore. So it's
He's in Denver.
So again, you look at guys like Jawan Johnson, Foster Moreau. Like, you know, you're going to need it from so many different spots. But having a Taysom Hill in this regard is where I think helps in this sense, because Taysom Hill can do so many different things. He can be that security blanket for Spencer Rattler. We don't know if he's going to play yet. So there's so many question marks.
And also security blanket for Kubiak as well. Okay, it seems again on Sunday, going up against a Bulls defense, he did not make the adjustments that were necessary to help Rattler in his offense in the second half.
And you saw that when they were just completely shut down. They were shut out in a sense, and you just scratch your head because you see what happened in the second quarter. You expect them to build on that in the second half, and it just never happened.
You mentioned Morrow and Johnson both had good games. They have become basically, again, glorified offensive tackles in this offense because of the inability to protect the quarterback and open up the running game, holes for the running game. I'm wondering again, with the issues at wide receiver, will we see them more active in the passing game this week, or will they have to be able to kept in to be able to block and protect Rattler? Your thoughts?
Well, I think Jawan Johnson will. I mean, people might forget he entered the NFL as a wide receiver.
Right.
So again, he has that background. He was learning to be a tight end. Still, unfortunately, injuries have hindered that development in a sense, but you can lean on him in the passing game more, knowing he has a receiver background. He can line up in different variations. Morrow, you're going to need him to. When you saw Derek Carr throw a jump ball to him in week 1 against Carolina, you're like, okay, we know that's a part of your game, but we also know you're most valuable when you're able to block. So I think you could see Johnson be used more in the receiving sense, Morrow in the sense that he was blocking, because you need protection on the offensive line. So I think you see their roles sort of change a little bit more. But again, there's so many uncertainties. You hope Shaheed and Olave are cleared, but on such a short week like this, is it worth it? And does time afford you that?
Right. And you almost knew that when you have 3 games in 10 days, if you are injured in that stretch, you're not coming back for the next game.
Right.
So again, it's going to be very difficult. All right. Peyton's coming to town, okay? And I told you when we before we started the show, something I talked about on the radio show this week. We know Peyton, okay? We know Peyton. 16 years in New Orleans, we know Peyton. You know this guy has had an assistant or assistants breaking down the Saints every single week, looking for again deficiencies, weaknesses, etc. He knows Allen. Allen knows him. He knows the players know him. Last week, defense, 8 plays of 20 or more yards, 594 yards, second most allowed in Saints history, 277 yards by backup running backs. He's licking his chops right now. You know he is. You know he's coming in here to blow this team out if possible.
So last week, Bo Nix led the Broncos, obviously in passing, as their starting quarterback, but he was their top rusher. And I think when you see what the Bucs did, in a sense, he's looking at his running backs like, you guys better be ready for a big workload because we're coming your way. But he is licking his chops because he's facing the New Orleans Saints with a rookie quarterback, a deficient offensive line, the defense isn't quite healthy or doing what it's supposed to be doing. You know he's going to game plan for all of these things. And that's even when you're speaking to the Saints, in a sense, they all believe, the fact that he's coming to town on a short week, that's probably just a detail in a sense. But if you're looking at it from Denver's perspective, he sees this as a must-win opportunity and one that he can definitely take advantage of. It's unfortunate the current state of the Saints right now, but I'm not overly confident in what to expect Thursday night. But especially, he is one of the greatest minds in the NFL. He's proven that throughout the course of his career, and certainly when you see this Thursday night matchup, it is a recipe for disaster in a sense.
Well, it could be. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's, the injuries. What could maybe transpire if there is another blowout loss, okay, and with a crisis of confidence within that locker room. Look, they had a crisis of confidence last year. Everybody wants to throw that, but wants to sweep that under the rug, but they had a crisis of confidence last year. Now, they turned it around toward the end of the season against some really bad football teams and won some games. There was a lot of thought going out to California, being sequestered, again, building that team building, the team meeting that they had with, again, the leaders on the team, saying we're going to back Carr, we're backing Dennis Allen. All that can erode if you lose 5 in a row and get blown out in your last 2, and then also have your former coach come in and blow you out as well. Again, this organization, I don't believe they're in the business of firing coaches in the middle of the year. But I think if this is a 5th loss on Thursday night, we could see maybe some shift in the chairs on the Titanic right now, because even though I think there's a lot of season left, based on what we saw last year, this thing could be falling apart.
Yeah, and someone asked me that yesterday. Do you think they make a coaching change in the middle of the season? I said no.
No way.
I said, unfortunately, no.
No way.
Not unfortunately in a sense that, it needs to happen. Just unfortunately, it's not ideal. Given what's on the back end of the schedule, you could get healthy. You could potentially piece together some sort of run here down the stretch. And I think a coaching change would definitely discombobulate, throw a wrench in that hopes.
Well, who's your head coach, Rizzi? I mean, think about it at that point. Again, when you look at, coordinators on this team, Kubiak's a new coordinator. Is the defensive coordinator going to move up to the Joe Woods, to the head coach? More than likely, it would be a guy like Rizzi. So, I mean, look, I know that Loomis et al. Do not want to go down that road right now.
No, you're absolutely right, because, it just would hinder any hopes
Right.
of a potential playoff run.
Right.
I just don't think it's the right move. I think patience is
Right.
what's needed most right now, and unfortunately, that's not what people have, especially you mentioned with the confidence of the football team. This is something that you've seen with this team the past 3 years. It's compounding at this point.
Right.
Now you've reached a boiling point, and unfortunately, the same issues you dealt with 3 years ago, 2 years ago, you're dealing with now. And at some point, the fan base obviously is asking, like, when's it going to end?
Yes.
Unfortunately, there is no end in sight right now. We mentioned what's on the back end with next year's cap situation, and then what the team's going through right now. I think patience is what's needed most in this sense, and I know I'm probably going to get torn to pieces for saying that, but I don't think firing your coach in the middle of a year, knowing that there's potential on the back end, is going to save what this team could accomplish years to come.
In my opinion, Richie, you can't let Dennis Allen be a scapegoat for again, what is an organizational problem.
Right.
This is an organizational issue that goes all the way to the top, okay? And again, if you're going to make changes, changes need to be made, wholesale changes, and not just a reaction to be able to say, okay, this is one guy's issue. No, this is an organizational issue. This is stemmed again from the cap situation, drafts that have not come to fruition, bad free agency moves, etc. You can go all the way down the line of where they are now. Yes, injuries have compounded where they are right now, but injuries are also part of the game.
Right.
So again, to me, I know a lot of people say fire Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is not the root of the issues for the New Orleans Saints. Again, if there's going to be any firing, you have to go from the top down.
And of course, I was, building off what you just said with the draft. When they named Spencer Rattler the starter, I wasn't, surprised at all. I was just a little confused because you dedicate all these resources to trade up for Jake Haener. We have not seen Jake Haener. And this just shows you have no confidence in Jake Haener. But from an outside perspective, you drafted up to get him.
Right.
Or you traded up to draft him.
Yes.
Let's see what he looks like. What could you possibly lose? So again, it just seems like there's no trust in their decision making at this point, especially when you see what happened with Marcus Davenport now. But then again, it's one thing after another. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. You hope it does.
Right.
But
well, again, it's a long season. We'll see. Again, we'll see if they get healthy. That's the one thing. And then again, if they can stay together as a team. But again, to your point, one of the problems I have with the way the Saints draft is, they are too impatient at times. They hone in on a certain player and are willing to give up multiple picks to go get that player. When in a lot of cases that hurts you because your quality depth on the team is your third, fourth, fifth, sixth round picks. Those are the picks they usually give up to move up, and now you're seeing the byproduct of that when you have the major injuries like you have now, and you don't have that quality depth because you've given away again the meat of your draft to go get one player.
Right, especially when you trade up to draft Jake Haener, and then you pick a quarterback the following year in the 5th round when there's a quality offensive lineman probably on the board, a defensive lineman on the board. So it just, and it's not a good look either when your entire draft class from this past year was hurt in some way, shape, or form in off-season programs. I haven't heard from Jalen Ford, linebacker from Texas. Haven't heard from him. Bub Means, we just heard from him last week. So again, it just feels like the decision making has been a little off. You trust that it's going to be correct given the history of the organization. But again, the decision making that was happening 10 years ago is not happening right now.
And here's the other point of this as well. One of the things we heard going to California, and I was all for it, and I'm all for them going back if they want, okay? But again, soft tissue injuries. They have plagued this team over the last couple seasons. They continue to plague this team. Is that a byproduct of the age of this roster? Again, what is the issues here? This is not just a New Orleans Saints issue. It's also a New Orleans Pelicans issue. What's going on Airline Drive with the soft tissue injuries?
Must be the kind of concrete that they use.
I don't know. Okay, but I mean, I don't think. I mean, I'd love to see a study on again the NBA and the NFL to see if the Saints are an anomaly, or if this is what's going on around the league with soft tissue injuries.
I think it's just the water.
Yeah, maybe so.
The water system.
That's why everybody's drinking bottled water these days.
Knees, hamstrings.
There you go. All right, next two opponents for the Saints are AFC opponents. Denver comes into the Dome on Thursday night. They're 3-3. The following game, they will play the Chargers. The Chargers beat Denver 23-16 on Sunday. Of course, we've kind of glossed over the big thing that's going to happen on Thursday night, and that is the induction of Drew Brees in the Saints Hall of Fame. You would think the Dome would be rocking just for that, but again, if you look on the secondary market for tickets, the bottom has fallen out.
No, I've seen on social media people basically protesting this team right now, basically saying, do not buy tickets, do not go to this game. And that's unfortunate.
No, because that's Drew Brees, come on.
And you know what this team means to this community.
Absolutely.
The dome's going to be packed. It's going to be packed.
Right.
But it's just that mindset and that mentality is a little discouraging because, you know, again, patience is needed right now. That's not what we're going to get.
No, we're not going to. No, not in this town. Based on, again, the history of this organization and what we've seen over the last 3 years as well. I think the fans' patience have run out. You know, and that's the issue here. All right, you are watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Richie Mills, Channel 26 Sports, is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll take a break, hear from our underwriters. We come back. LSU, Tulane, Pelicans, all on tap. Stick around.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Richie Mills, Channel 26 Sports, is our guest. All right, let's talk some LSU here. They are at Arkansas this week. LSU is 4-2. They're 2-1 in the. I'm sorry. LSU is 5-1, winners of 4 in a row. They're 2-0 in the SEC. Arkansas is 4-2, 2-1. It's a game on ESPN this week. That's at 6 p.m. and that's coming off again, which was I thought it was just an incredible game. I thought, first of all, LSU beats Ole Miss 29-23 in overtime. They're now 8th in both the AP and the coaches poll. And 100 years of Tiger Stadium, homecoming, just a vibe, and again was incredible through the TV screen. Much less again every reporter that I've talked to that's been there, friends and family that have been there, and it was an electric vibe in Tiger Stadium, with 102 fans just going nuts. But it was an incredible game as well. You look at again, Ole Miss looks like they're the dominant team in the first quarter. Both teams go scoreless. Both teams kind of get rolling in the second quarter, and then of course you see Ole Miss continually shoot themselves in the foot with all the penalties, and then of course the Tigers really come alive in the second half. Like you broke down the game on Sunday with the Saints, break that game down for us.
So when you see Trey Harris, the top wide receiver in the country, make that drop early in the game, you think to yourself, LSU has to take advantage because, yes, Ole Miss shot themselves in the foot. That's 7 points on the board. You look at the final score, that's the difference between a win and a loss. Garrett Nussmeier, I'll start with him, obviously, because the game-winning touchdown was really going to overshadow a lot of the good and the bad that he did. But to come through in those moments really showed the maturity and the growth because, again, he hits Aaron Anderson for the touchdown that sends the game to overtime ultimately. And then to find Kyron Lacey for the game-winning walk-off touchdown, that was incredible in those moments because, you needed that. We didn't know what we were going to get from Garrett Nussmeier in those moments, in that environment. Now I know that when my quarterback needs to make those throws, he can. On the flip side of that, he really did not have the best outing. And unfortunately, we kind of got a few disgruntled emails after basically saying that we undersold the win. But his completion percentage was less than 50.
It was 22-51, 337, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Right, and that's a product of, yes, Ole Miss's defense is very good in a sense, but, it really wasn't his best game. But it's those growing opportunities, the ones where he throws a pick, he comes back, he throws a touchdown. He had a few of those in the game, and ultimately one of them was a game winner. So I think the growth from Garrett Nussmeier, knowing what we get from him in these clutch situations now is important. The LSU defense, I cannot rave enough about what they were able to do on Saturday. They didn't sack Jackson Dart last year. They gave up 700 yards of offense. Dart threw for 389, 4 touchdowns. That was last year's win with Jaden Daniels. They sacked Jack Dart 6 times. They forced 2 fumbles, and they really kept the field short for him the entirety of the game. Sure, Trey Harris's drop, some of their miscues on offense, that helps. But the LSU defense did what they were supposed to do. When people talk about them competing for a playoff spot, yeah, the Nussmeier game winner helps. Based off what I saw from that LSU defense, the mentality they played with Whit Weeks, I mean, I was blown away, and I thought to myself, they could be a contender in the playoff if that defense takes the field every week.
Well, I think what we saw was, again, guys stepping up on all 3 levels, and especially, again, players that you know, or show that they're one of the top players. It could be some of the top players in the SEC. Swenson on the line. Then you go to Weeks on the second level. And that, having Zy Alexander, a guy you covered at Southeastern, back and what he did for the secondary, taking a lot of pressure off Stamps as well. You now on all 3 levels, you got an alpha.
No, you do. And Savion Jones is the perfect complement to Braden Swinson, a St. James product. Those 2 wreaking havoc on the quarterback each and every week certainly helps. Whit Weeks, I mean, 18 tackles.
Everywhere.
18 tackles. You thought there could be a drop-off with Harold Perkins going out. I didn't think there was going to be because they just didn't seem they knew how to use him anymore. But Whit Weeks, it doesn't matter. It's see ball, go get ball.
Yes.
I mean, he looked like Devin White out there back in college.
He did.
And then Zy Alexander having just a healthy secondary in a sense, that helps because, yeah, you saw him play at Southeastern and you understood why he was transferring to LSU because when I'm covering him at Southeastern, I remember being out at practice, I'm talking to Zach Bickner, who played football at St. Charles Catholic. He, you know, walked on at Southeastern, and I looked at Zy Alexander and another quarterback, and I said, cornerback, and I said, you know, those are 2 NFL prospects right there. I said, you are in the right situation learning under an NFL prospect like Zy Alexander. So I knew what he was capable of when healthy, and I think last year, sure, it was a little discouraging for him, but I also think it was an eye-opening experience. Like, okay, I need to elevate my game. You saw him do that Saturday. Again, the performance of the LSU defense gives me confidence about what this team can accomplish moving forward. Unfortunately, we've seen in years past after an emotional win like that, you face Arkansas, and it's a little too close for comfort.
Yeah, and having to go to Fayetteville as well. Explosive play is still an issue for this defense. They've got to get that under control, but you feel better about it now based on what you saw against a prolific offense with Ole Miss.
Bend, don't break. And they bent a few times, but they did not break. And certainly, I'll keep alluding to it, the Trey Harris drop doesn't help your cause. Their penalties, you know, their dysfunction, but it's improvement. And I think that's really the main concern that we have with this LSU team was, yeah, you have a top 10 passing attack. Your offense looks like it's going to score, 30 a game. Can the defense hold up in these shootouts? I don't think Brian Kelly wanted a shootout with Ole Miss, but now he saw that, yeah, in a bend, don't break situation like that, his defense rose to the occasion when they needed to.
If there's a weakness on offense right now, still it's the running game, or lack thereof.
It is.
And again, if you're going to win in the SEC, you've got to be able to run the football. And maybe that's the most curious thing about what's going on the offensive side, because the offensive line, in terms of pass blocking, one of the best in the country. But when it comes to run blocking, they have not been able to get it done.
And it's been confusing because Caden Durham could have a breakout performance. The very next game, he gets 6 carries. Okay, that's confusing, but, we trust you. Then you see him break out against South Alabama. He's been banged up all week. He comes back, 12 carries. Now, when you watch the game, you can easily say the front 7 for Ole Miss were able to penetrate, but with an offensive line, with a draft prospect, you expect to have his name come off the board at maybe number 1 overall. It is kind of confusing, their inability to run the football. Only 84 yards rushing. Caden Durham got 12 carries. Even when they did struggle against UCLA, they found a way to get him involved in the pass game. That just never seemed like it was going to happen. It's not sustainable. LSU, once again, is sort of one-dimensional in a sense where the only production you're going to have is throwing the football. And we saw Garrett Nussmeier, when you put that kind of workload on him in that kind of environment, we saw the good and the bad. You saw a game-winning touchdown pass. You also saw a couple of picks that could have cost you the game. So it really makes LSU one-dimensional offensively. It puts too much pressure on Garrett Nussmeier. It's not sustainable. I don't think it's sustainable.
I agree with you. No, you have to be able to run the football. And look, maybe Durham's toe was bothering him. Maybe that might have been a situation. We know Williams is dependable, and Jackson has been a non-factor for this team so far. So again, they're going to have to muster a running game to be able to compete down the line here in the SEC. They went up against a team that like to throw the ball over the field in Ole Miss. That's going to change. All right, Arkansas this week. Does your feeling on the SEC change with, again, the Arkansas win over Tennessee and the Vandy win over Alabama. When you look at the remaining games on the LSU schedule, again, look, everybody circles games and says that's a win. Is it a much tougher schedule now down the stretch?
Yes, because I cannot confidently look at a game and pick the result. I can say that could be a win or that could be a loss, and that's the beauty of the SEC this year is while you expected the teams like the Georgias and the Alabamas to really, separate themselves, they haven't. And then you see what Vanderbilt is doing now on a weekly basis. LSU plays them next month. I'm not confident about that at all at Tiger Stadium, given what Pavia and all of them have done. Arkansas is dangerous, and you didn't think they were until they beat Tennessee with their backup quarterback.
But they always give LSU problems.
Right, and that's
this is their game, right? I mean, this is kind of their big game.
I am not confident in any result moving forward. That's why I just kind of take it 1 week at a time because, nothing surprises me anymore this year when you see Arkansas upset Tennessee and then Vandy beat Bama.
I don't want to go too deep into this, but again, your thoughts on the top of the SEC. Is it Georgia? Is it Texas, Georgia? Is LSU in that mix? Is there another team that you think is in that mix that would maybe be a possible playoff team or again, at least maybe in the mix of the SEC championship?
I don't think there's a top. And before Quinn Ewers' injury, I thought it was Texas.
Okay.
But now coming back and you have somewhat of a, quarterback controversy in a sense of people like,
I thought Arch was going in last week.
Right, I did too, especially with the slow start that Ewers got off to. We had Jordan Rodgers on the program, and he even said himself, I wouldn't be surprised. Quinn Ewers gets a slow start, those Arch chants will start to talk. So again, before the injury, I thought it was Texas. Now that we've had the injury, I don't think it's anyone. And that's unfortunate, but that's great because it could be anybody.
Right.
On the program, I said, I think Alabama might be the best team in the SEC. What do? They go and lose to Vanderbilt. So, it's just, it could be anyone's year. And I think that's exciting for the sport. That's exciting for our programming, obviously.
Absolutely.
But, no, I thought it was Texas, but I don't think it's Texas anymore.
All right. Let's go to Tulane. 4-2, 2-0 in the AC. After a week off, again, they have Rice, who is 2-4. That's a Yeoman. That's a 2:30 kickoff. That's on ESPN Plus and also 106.1 The Ticket and our sister station 106.7 as well. We'll be simulcasting that game on Saturday. We are now again the flagship station for Tulane football and also men's basketball at 106.1 The Ticket. 71 points put on UAB. I guess a thorough butt whipping from that standpoint. I don't want to go too deep into that. What I want to talk about is. And Summerall was incredible yesterday, coming out just and pretty much saying, look, my team didn't perform in practice. You're going to get beat if you. The one thing again, teams are going to get overconfident. Okay, when you put up 71 points, you play as well as Tulane is right now, and he seemed to be able to try to ground his team yesterday. Hopefully, again, he does that. You don't want to be overlooking Rice. Your thoughts on, again, this Tulane team, how they are right now, again, with 6 games into the season?
Well, he said complacency is the biggest killer, and you certainly believe him. And I think, unfortunately, it might take a scare to really wake them up in that sense, but the way they've played so far, you don't think there's going to be one. And I think that's also a plus, is that he's keeping his team alert and competitive, knowing that, this isn't the toughest AAC schedule that they're going to have. I mean, Memphis is at the back end of it. You hope you have a confident team that's firing on all cylinders when that game comes. We hope so, too, given the fact the AAC championship is once again on a Friday on ABC. So, of course, we would love to have Tulane. But I'm so impressed with the identity that they have now developed on offense, in a sense that the past 3 games, they're averaging around 50 carries per game, 262 yards rushing during that stretch. Mekhi Hughes, it's more than Mekhi Hughes. And I think before the season, when they were having a quarterback competition between Ty Thompson, Kai Horton, Summerall pretty much preached that you didn't need them to be superheroes. You had a veteran offensive line, you had a solid run game, and I think that's something that you're seeing Darian Mensah lean on. He does have those breakout performances, but again, the bread and butter of this offense has been through the offensive line. And their ability to create run lanes, no matter who's in the backfield, I think was so impressive. They ran for over 300 in that 71-point outburst against UAB. So really their ability to run the football, Darian Mensah's ability to take care of the football, and then the defense, who also has shown, a bend don't break mentality, but they are also scoring points. And I think that's something that people don't get. They're getting production and points from all 3 phases of the game, and that's something I don't think I don't think I've seen from a Tulane team so far. So that's encouraging for me. And they're not just doing it against league competition. You know, they were doing it against Oklahoma. They were doing it against Kansas State. So that's something to really be encouraged about moving forward. I think Summerall hit it on the head perfect. Complacency could be the killer for this team, and I don't think he's going to allow that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You mentioned the offensive line. To me, that's one of the keys to, obviously, the main key to their success. You're talking about, again, bringing guys in through the transfer portal, along with, again, with your returning starters, and to be able to put those guys together, have them work as a unit, the cohesion. And look, you mentioned they did it against Kansas State. They did it against Oklahoma. I'm watching Oklahoma last week, and I'm going, man, Tulane's offensive line played better, okay? So I think that's where it starts again. But Mensah and how he has performed, and again, his maturation process right before our very eyes, and seeing him get better every single week, taking care of the football, that uncanny ability that you just cannot teach, to be able to feel the rush, move. We saw Breeze do it again for over a decade here in New Orleans. The ability to be able to make something happen with your feet, not necessarily again to be able to run, but just to be able to get an open lane to be able to throw the football. It's been amazing to watch him again, his growth.
No, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country in efficiency, in a sense, but he's not just going to one guy, or he's not, he's spreading the wealth in a sense, and he's taking what the defense has given him. And I give so much credit to the guidance of a guy like Joe Craddock, Tulane's offensive coordinator, for putting his quarterback in a position to be successful, not basically putting the entire load on him. But we've seen from Darian Mensah, in a sense, that if he has to throw more than 15 passes a game, he's more than capable of putting up 300 yards passing and what feels like 4 touchdowns a game. But, you know, I'm so impressed. And when you talk about the offensive line, Vincent Murphy, their center, was Alabama bound. He was going to Bama, and now he's at Tulane. I think that speaks troves to what this coaching staff is all about, what the collective that Tulane has put together is really capable of doing. Ron Hunter, who you just mentioned, Tulane basketball, he rebuilt his entire basketball team through the portal, thanks to the collective. So again, I think Tulane on all fronts is doing so many things correct, and I see that that's the product that they're putting on the football field.
And again, they've got to put emphasis on facilities in order for them to be, again, a candidate for the next round of conference realignment. But again, the program, at least the football program right now, looks like it's on a really good footing, again, with Summerall picking up for where Fritz left off. Defense. One thing I've seen about this defense over the last few weeks is it was starting to remind me of the defense under Fritz, flying around to the ball, the wave, almost like a wave to the ball. Talk a bit about the defense.
Tyler Grubbs. That's one thing I can say. You had the Nick Andersons and the Dorian Williams. Tyler Grubbs has now assumed that role as your team captain at linebacker. Jesus Machado, we haven't seen him because of injury, but again, you expect that if he was out there as well, they'd also be flying to the ball. This secondary is so impressive. Rayshawn Pleasant, who again is a monster on special teams and a monster in the secondary, they all fly to the ball. Bailey Despanie's their defensive leader in the secondary. Chinchu, you know, everyone that the pieces that they brought in and surrounded with what I believe Summerall said was 4 to 10 starters that, you know, might have been returning. You know, they've been complimentary to what Tulane's done, and they're turning teams over. Yeah, they're giving up some yardage, but it's just their ability to take away the football that I think has really allowed them to separate. The pass rush is mature. I mean, I'm just so encouraged and blown away by what the defense has done, and it definitely does give me confidence moving forward. Now, you hope there's not a scare on the schedule, but there might be, and we don't know where that's going to come from. But when they play Memphis at the end of the year, you expect that to be for the conference.
All right, that's where I was going next. Memphis, Army, Navy. First of all, are you buying into Army and Navy?
I don't know. It's so tough. I haven't seen anything from, you know, their operations or their programs that have made me to believe that, you know, this is going to be a permanent thing. I feel like there's some hiccups on the schedule moving forward. You know, your option attack, the run game, I think that can only last you for so long, unfortunately, in a conference that I think is so underrated and so competitive.
I'm going to top of my head. I think it's Navy, Memphis at the end of the season, right? Back to back?
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe it is. So that'll be a big key for them getting into the AAC championship. Is this a team that can make the college football playoffs?
I believe they could. And again, they have to take care of business, take care of all these opportunities to improve. They should have beat Kansas State.
I agree.
They should have beaten that team. Oklahoma, they were right there against Jackson Arnold. And Tyler Grubbs, who we just mentioned, had a pick 6 in that game. But we've seen what this team can do against top 15 competition. I believe they do belong in that discussion, and I think they do now, especially seeing just how close they were in those games, and knowing what the back end of the schedule presents, it's an opportunity to continue to get better. And if you keep putting up 50-plus points, I guarantee you the College Football Playoff Committee is going to take notice.
That's right here in my notes. Navy, followed by Memphis. Okay, end of November. All right, let's talk some Pels. They start the season next Wednesday against the Bulls in the Smoothie King Center. They want to go with this position as basketball. They want to go without a center. Again, in the preseason finale against Houston, Messi showed some things, but I don't know if I'm buying into it yet. I still believe that, again, this team will not win in the playoffs if they do not get a legitimate big man. I will stand by that. When you get into the second season, things slow down, it becomes more half court. There's some physicality there. You have to be able to protect the rim, and they don't have that on this team. Give me your thoughts on the Pels going into this season as they start their season next Wednesday.
Well, when I see the Knicks trade for Karl Anthony Towns, I'm immediately thinking to myself, like, what is it going to take to bring Mitchell Robinson home?
Okay.
You know, there's your athletic big.
Yes, there is.
I mean, health has been somewhat of an issue for Robinson, but when he has been healthy, he's been productive. And I think that's the piece that they might be missing. Positionless basketball, I think it works up to a point.
Agreed.
You're going to need a dominant big at some point. You're going to need an athletic. You see what Anthony, if you put Herb Jones on Anthony Davis for the entirety of a game, I don't care how good Herb Jones is, that's not sustainable.
No.
You're going to lose that game probably 10 out of 10 times. I mean, yeah, sure, the three-point line has meant so much to the game of basketball, but I love basketball. I've been watching it forever, and I feel like the teams that tend to have those dominant bigs that they can play through are the ones that are winning championships at the end of the year. So when I see the Cat trade, I'm thinking to myself, maybe go get Mitchell Robinson. I love Yves Messi, and the Pelicans do too. They were high on his development. They thought that he could pick things up faster than everyone in his draft class. That's why they picked him, or so they said.
Yes.
But you hope to see that throughout the course of a year. Ultimately, someone asked me, the other day, what's going to keep the Pelicans from competing? It's not a big man, it's their health.
Yeah, as it's been every season.
Right, and that's unfortunate, but I think that's why you brought in DeJounte Murray, so that if you lose an all-star, you can replace him with an all-star. But, we don't know what to expect. And you can see a team go all the way to postseason contention and then fall because of one knee injury or a hamstring injury. So it's confusing. But the big situation, I mean, I like Messi. If you can play positionless basketball but sprinkle a good mix of him in there. Daniel Tice played great in the Olympics.
Yes, he did.
I mean, give them some run, let them rotate. But I don't know how long we'll see positionless basketball.
And I don't either. Again, because if you look, it's one thing to want to emulate the Golden State Warriors, but you need the Splash Brothers.
Right.
Okay.
You do.
Okay. I mean, you need that. That's what you need. You don't have that. So again, that's part of it. Look, maybe Messi will quickly mature under fire here again. But what I've seen from him in just a small sample sizes, he's a guy that's destined for Birmingham. And they may ruin him if they put him in a situation where he's got to go up against Jokic.
Right.
Okay, so we'll see again how that plays out. Do you think Brandon Ingram is with this team at the trading deadline?
Oh, that's tough. I think it depends on the course of the season.
Okay.
I think if they're in contention and they're playing at the top of their game, yes. I think if they're sort of in the middle of the pack and it just seems like it's a little rough around the edges, the product that they put out there, and it just kind of feels like there's no there's no mixing. If it's not gelling well, I think that is a move you see potentially make to maybe get that big that you might need.
I think it's the only way you get the big.
Which is unfortunate because, out of Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram has been your most available asset, but unfortunately that might be your biggest asset in the trade market.
You buy Zion's in incredible shape. Looks like again he's going to really take off this year. You buying?
His buy-in last year, I was convinced up until the injury. I think I have to go with the track record here. Okay. I'm not buying it until I see it in totality. I need to see it from start to finish.
Got 30 seconds. Is this a play-in tournament team or a playoff team?
I think it's a playoff team if they stay healthy.
They stay healthy, yeah. Same thing like that. They're having a problem, a crisis of staying healthy on Airline Drive, unfortunately. Richie, one more time. Tell us about, again, the program at Channel 26. Got 30 seconds.
Weeknights, WGNO News at 6 and 10. The WGNO Sports Zone. Friday nights, 10:30, NOLA 38, the CW. The replay Saturday mornings at 10:30 a.m. on WGNO. Sports Zone Saturday Night Football, our SEC show after the primetime game on Saturdays. And then, of course, we have specials all around Monday Night Football, especially when they relate to the state of Louisiana on ABC.
Great breakdown, as always. Thanks so much for joining us today on the program.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, plenty of ways to catch our program now. There's a QR code on your screen that will take you again to the WLAE-TV YouTube channel or to my website, ericasher.com. You can watch this show on Pelican Sports Television, WLAE-TV 2, WLAE. I mean, so many ways to catch the program. Find us, and again, set your DVR and you'll never miss the show. All right, don't forget, catch me on the radio, 106.1 The Ticket. Again, that is weekdays 4 to 6. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Anchor Spotify is where you can find our podcast. We're on all podcasting platforms. The 106.1 The Ticket has an app now. You can download the app, take the station, the show with you everywhere. Other digital platforms, iHeartRadio app, TuneIn Radio app. And of course, again, you can check us out on the World Wide Web as well. All right, I want to thank our underwriters who make the show possible. Each and every one of those underwriters who, again, stay with us, again, through the length of this show and continue to be able to, again, make this show possible. Please support our underwriters. And of course, we want to thank our folks here at WLE who produce our program and do a fantastic job. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Alex Chacon, and I got to say it, best director on the planet, that would be William Hill. I'm Eric Asher for Richie Mills. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. And I did it on time.
Hey, I'm Keith Sparrow from NOLA.com and the Times Picayune. My guest this week on Let's Talk is singer-songwriter and fellow Texas A&M Aggie, Lyle Lovett. Lyle, do you know any good Aggie jokes?
My favorite Aggie joke is about the incoming freshman who was traveling to College Station for the very first time. And as he got close, he saw a sign that said College Station left. So he turned around and went home.
Tune in for more Aggie humor this week on Let's Talk.
Consumers today want a lot more information on just where their food is coming from and what's involved in bringing it from farm to fork. America's Heartland gives urban viewers an inside look at modern agriculture, your chance to meet the men and women on farms and ranches who play an essential role in delivering food, fuel, and fiber to our nation and the world. Real people, real stories on America's Heartland.
Saturdays at 5 a.m.